Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Smart Home Collective. Today, delighted to be joined by somebody who's on a previous episode. It was episode 7 and it's Tom from Fluss. Tom, good evening, how are you doing?
Great, Lee. Thanks for having me back on here. It's been a while. How long it's been, but it's hard to believe it's been that long.
It's been 2 years and it's almost like this is an anniversary for us, Tom. It was almost 2 years to the date. The episode 7 went out in September 2021, so I couldn't believe it's been 2 years since then.
Wow, time has flown.
Time has flown, and in a good way, because I'm looking forward to hearing how Fluss has progressed since then and what the development's been. So, for those that haven't listened to episode 7 back 2 years ago, we'll do a slight overview of what Fluss is. We'll recap in terms of what the project is, talk about the company. Tom's going to give us an overview of what differences have been since that 2 year gap, and we've got some community questions which came in as well. All right, so. Yeah. Fluss is a device which manages who accesses your property. You can control anything with an electric motor, albeit a gate, boom, turnstile, doors and barriers. Tom, when we last spoke, I thought it was a good intro in terms of how the device, the concept was created. It was in a pub.
Exactly, yes.
Give me that story again, because I thought it was a very good story.
Well, it was actually a mate of mine, we were discussing all the advances in technology and how you still had to carry a remote around with you to get into your gate, or to have little printed parking tickets to pay for your parking, and wondering if there was a way that we could improve it. And that led to the invention of Fluss. And once we set it up in our own offices and tested it with a few mates, we realized that everyone loved it and they wanted to know where they could buy it. So we realized we wanted something commercial. And that's when the journey began. Good.
So it was more spawned from almost a software development point of view, from a parking. Was it a parking app you were looking at, and then the technology then led you down the path to device development?
That's exactly that. We've been running a software consulting business for a while, building apps and websites for people. So we had quite a bit of experience, and then the parking app that became the big driver in the beginning. We realized that. It had more uses than just parking, and then Fluss grew into a product, and the electrical design process was great fun. Something I haven't done since varsity days. It was cool, and we got into that and had about 10 versions of Fluss built before the first one was ready to be installed in someone other than our gate at the office. We definitely released the magical smoke a few times and broke a few devices in the process. And Fluss was created.
So when we spoke in 2021, now correct me if I'm wrong, from my memory, the device hadn't been out very long, had it? So September 2021, I think from memory, it'd only been out a couple of months.
Yes, and in fact, that was a bit of a beta product at that stage. Our official launch was actually in 2022.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, we
spoke very early on then.
Where we started selling with a few just independent distributors and so on. And the products evolved quite a bit since then. It's essentially the same thing. It's basically has 3 wires that plug into any gate or garage or anything electronic, turnstile, boom. It can do a lot more. It turns out it can do a lot more than just access control. People have been using it cars and fridges and so on, but the app is primarily focused on access control, to getting into properties. It's been used in a few gyms, so members get access to the app. If they forget to pay their fees, then the access is revoked and they can't get into the gym.
Okay.
It's been used in South Africa's got quite a few residential complexes. One of them has over 1,000 homes inside this estate, and they use Fluss on all their entrances and exits to control who comes in and who goes out.
It's quite a good bit of growth since that beta product when we were speaking about it.
Yeah, big change. Lots of learning.
Yeah.
In fact, I know where most of the 2 years has gone is fixing bugs and customer scaling.
It's good to hear that you're fixing the bugs. That's what I think, from a consumer point of view, it's always nice to hear bugs getting fixed.
Yeah. No, it's we've because it's a hardware device and there's so many different mobile devices out there, and we have started off with Bluetooth. There's a lot of quirks when it comes to dealing with certain Android devices, certain Huawei devices, and especially some of the stranger phones that come out of that you find in the low LSM markets. The guys, I'm not sure where they come from, but they don't speak Bluetooth like the rest of the.
So one thing I've noticed since we last spoke, the social media presence has certainly grown. You've got a good Instagram channel, and there's a couple of chaps I'm seeing in a warehouse. Has the footprint and infrastructure of Fluss grown substantially over that 2-year period? Or are you very much where you were when we first spoke?
So we've grown a lot. Our growth has been, it depends on which metric you look at, but it's been more than 100% each month for the last 6 months.
Okay.
And yeah, we've signed up with some really great distributors. There's some of the biggest ones in the country. One of them in South Africa is Regal. They're the biggest security store chain in the country, and they stock us in all their branches. And yeah, we've attended a few expos. We now. I think most people in the industry know about Fluss, in the security industry know about Fluss, and are comfortable with installing it. And we're hoping to sell more and more and more.
Good. So certainly the footprint in South Africa you've established now.
Yeah, I would say there's lots of room for sales. We still we're known in the security industry, but not necessarily by the homeowners and people in the hospitality industry and people in the building management industry and so on. So there's lots of scope. And
plans to kind of force your way into that sector. Is there a plan? How do you tackle that?
It's tricky. So as you spoke about our social media presence, we've got a great social media manager. She handles all of our posts and so on, and that presence has really helped us a lot attract new customers. Online sales has picked up, although our sales are still predominantly through the vast majority of our sales are through our distributors. We have listed installers for around the country. People that install Fluss devices have done the training, and so if people come to the website, they can find an installer. But yeah, as Fluss is one of those products, we did the homework, and if you tell someone about Fluss, the sales conversion rate is about 15-20% at best. If they use Fluss once, the sales conversion rate is about 95%.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's one of those things that you have to see and try to really. A lot of people don't understand it until they've opened the gate or opened the garage Fluss device.
Yeah, and it's still. And I think this is obviously just given the model based in South Africa. I know we did touch on it before we started recording. The presence in the EU is obviously still lacking. So Fluss is not an apology, certainly in Scotland, where I'm from, in the UK, unless you go really looking. When you mentioned Fluss to somebody, they would look at you and say, "What did you say to me?"
It's one of our goals. We've spent a lot of time getting the device certified. All the certifications, all the requirements needed to send to the US and the UK markets. We've actually explored a few options with regards to distributors in the EU, but nothing's come to light yet. So we're looking for the right partner to partner with to get into Europe. The South African market is a lot smaller, but Fluss works very well because South Africans are very security conscious. Much more than we have the highest Gini coefficient, inequality. So there are many wealthy people and very many poor people, and that leads to higher rates of crime. I think it's not the direct cause, but that's one of the outcomes, and that's why South Africans are very security conscious, and many people have big walls, electric fences, and so on. So Fluss suits that, but that's not where Fluss's usefulness ends. That's just a beginning. And now we have been redeveloping our backend completely to allow to scale and to bring in a whole bunch of new features. One of them more suited to the European and American markets is the Wi-Fi version of Fluss. Bluetooth will still work. So in the instance that there's no connectivity, no data or no Wi-Fi.
I was going to say it's always the worst. The fear for me is, your Wi-Fi goes down, you can't open your front door.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why we started with Bluetooth. It was never the goal to end with Bluetooth, but Bluetooth allows you to open it. And when there's no South Africa, we struggle with our grid is under severe strain. So we have periods of no power in areas, and that Fluss still works because there's a backup battery normally in a gate or a garage, and there's no issue using it. Whereas if it was purely Wi-Fi based, then game over. You can't get out your garage.
So I'm going to just put an apology for the people who are only listening to audio only. So for the people who are watching this on YouTube, I've just popped up a little pictogram of what Fluss is. So without going too technical, Tom, run me through the physicalities of the device then.
Sure. So I mean, that looks exactly as you got on the screen, which is a small square box. Smaller than a matchbox, in fact, and it's got 3 wires that come out of it, which are basically positive, negative. So that connects to any power supply from 5 volts up to 30 volts, actually, and ground. And then it's got a trigger, and this trigger it's a normally open trigger. So it's a negative pulse that you can, if you want, you can use it to control pretty much anything. Add a relay in tow, and it can switch your lights on or off. It can control gates, garages, turnstiles, booms, as we've spoken about. The device itself is powered by ESP32C3 chip, which is a very low power, quite a powerful ARM chip. It's got its own cryptographic coprocessor, so all the cryptography is done onto the chip, so we're not using software libraries for that, and that's how we can ensure that the security of the Fluss is quite good. So we not only use Bluetooth, which has its own encryption, but we, on top of that, have our own proprietary, or making use of the standards. We have a challenge response using secret token that's stored securely on the device.
And that's a fair point, because it was a question that did come in from somebody on Twitter, was from a secure point of view, using the app and opening your gates, etc. How secure is it that people aren't just able to well, I'm not going to pretend I know the terminology for hacking, but how secure is Fluss?
Well, our initial goal is to just beat the current standard for gates and garages. As you know, you have remotes have rolling codes, and some of them have fairly sophisticated security mechanisms. So our first target was just to make sure that we're more secure than those. And I think we succeeded in that quite quickly. We're always trying to improve it. I would not go so far as to say it's unhackable. Anything with a targeted approach and enough time and resources is hackable.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But, we wanted to make sure that we got to a point where someone would rather break down a wall than try hack the Fluss. And I think we're at that point, and we're always trying to improve it.
Good, super. Okay, super. And installation-wise, you don't need to be an electrician for this thing?
No, funny enough, South Africans are very hands-off when it comes to this kind of stuff. So we do have an installer training program, and if you go through a few of the videos on the training, you see on the website there's a training tab. It's literally a 5-minute installation that anyone could do. It's we have wiring diagrams for the different kinds of garages and gates that you put on it, and if something doesn't prop up, we always have a chat, and our customer support, we call her our head of customer wow, will answer your questions in seconds regarding how to install it into an alarm system, for example, or anything else.
Okay, because it almost seems quite the opposite of the UK, and I don't know whether it's just because of the people I associate with, but my house, I think if an electrician came in and looked at my house, they would die with fright with what I've done to. Apart from kind of messing about with the consumer unit, I'm happily, I'll tinker and try anything within the house.
That's great, and Lee, I owe you an apology. We tried to ship some Fluss devices to you last time we spoke, but when we didn't have the UK CA mark,
I actually forgot about that.
We ran into a bit of trouble, so I can't wait to send you a few now to try out and come up with.
I'll come up with weird and wonderful ways to use it.
Excellent.
So, from an integration point of view, and the viewers and listeners will know it, and I make no bones about it. I'm a Home Assistant user. I love Home Assistant. But there's many other platforms out there. HomeKit, people use Habitat. Gladys was in episode 11 a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
From an integration point of view, where is Fluss at that point in time? Are you still within your app, or are you able to open up yet?
Excuse me, sorry. As I said, we have been rewriting the entire backend of Fluss, and we're bringing in Wi-Fi functionality. So luckily, that's just a firmware upgrade on the current version of the hardware, because the ESP32 chip supports Wi-Fi out the box. And one of the main purposes of that was to enable the integrations. We thought we could. We thought we could integrate with a lot of it using Bluetooth, but that just turns out to be too much of a headache. So once we introduce Wi-Fi, then the integration into HomeKit, the Home Assistant, or everything that you've spoken of becomes much more doable. And that's once we launch that, our very next goal is to enable the integrations. In fact, we've been testing a few of them here, and it's exciting what we can do.
Super, really good, excellent. What's the future hold like then for Fluss? So for 2 years, you've left Beta. You're now kind of starting to take over the South African market. I know you have touched on EU, US is kind of the market you want to tap into next. Is that really the next stage where you want to take Fluss?
Absolutely. So I mean, we haven't been twiddling our thumbs behind the scenes. We've been trying our best to learn as much as we can. There's a lot more to taking a product to market than we anticipated. We've to become experts in packaging and marketing and certification and finding the right partners, the distribution channels, and how to make sure that we can keep all parties happy in that process. But I think we've learned a lot, and I think we're ready to take the next step, which is to grow, firstly, Fluss into the rest of the world, and second, to start working on new features, new products.
Do you know, I'm glad you said that, because it's a question I have, which I actually cheekily never put on the agenda. So from a new product point of view, a product manufacturer and device manufacturer start somewhere. Fluss, you've started with the Fluss device. Is there a roadmap which shows future devices?
Absolutely. I can't go into what
I can imagine,
but I mean, there's a lot happening in the space, as you know. Matter's becoming quite popular, and I think that's going to open a lot of doors, and Thread is very exciting for us as well. So we've got our eyes on a few things that we're pursuing. We have a few products that are prototyping at the moment behind us. But yeah, we're basically following our customers' needs at the moment. So we're chatting to them and seeing where there's a lack, where we can integrate and innovate. We are also in discussion with a few hardware manufacturers, some people who manufacture gates and turnstiles and booms, to have a tight integration with devices and their devices. So sort of bringing that smart layer natively to a device, to a gate, and that's very exciting. We're far along the road with a few of those, and
fantastic.
One way to hit the market.
Yeah, super. And again, apologies, Tom, this question is not on the agenda. From a regulation and certification point of view, how painful has that been? And I'm going to tie back to Apple had their announcement recently, and they're moving from Lightning ports to USB-C because of EU regulation, and Apple were against it for so long. The hands have been forced. They're now going down that USB-C port standardization. How have you felt as a kind of up and coming new company, new device? The meeting the certification regulation point of view, has it been difficult?
I think when you don't know about the processes, then it's difficult. It's tricky to understand. And had we known, we probably would have hired a consultant early on and to help us make sure we did everything the right way the first time. But once you've gained an understanding, firstly, you can understand the need for it, because you can put together any electronics that's not safe or could be harmful or damaging to other equipment very easily. And so I can see there's a very good need. It fulfills a very good purpose, having the certification. And luckily, the certification, once you understand what's required and what's expected of you, it's not too difficult to get the EU CE mark. The UK CA mark is very similar. The FCC requirements are not too dissimilar. South Africa has its own requirements, and once you've started ticking the boxes, it becomes easier and easier. And now that we know how to do it, it'll be much easier for us to do it the next time and the next time.
Okay. No, that's very interesting. Good to know. Okay. Questions wise, I've kind of came to the end there. One I always like to ask most people is from a smart home. Listen, Tom, you've got a smart device. Okay, I would expect the co-owner of a smart device company has a top-notch smart home with the high-end automations, living and breathing AI. Tell me, what does your smart home look like?
That's you heard the saying that the plumber's pipe's always leaking.
Yes,
it's a bit like that. I do have quite a bit of smart devices. So South Africa with its power problems now, basically we're off the grid. We've been powering out everything with solar, and with that you need control of water heaters and all of that's now. I've moved on to home automation, home assistant, and using whatever devices that I can find that suit the current draw and so on. And so everything's on the phone. Recently, we had an issue with internet, and our home nearly fell apart because we couldn't connect and control everything. So my wife was very upset with me. But I think for the most part, something's always in a state of needs a little bit of attention. It's never quite.
It's a never-ending job. Listen, it's constant. It's constant. But listen, that's I suppose in the end of the day, that's why we do have smart homes, because there's an enjoyment there to constantly tinker and play around and see what's next.
Absolutely, no. And my wife, she often gets to the gate and can't open it because I've installed a new version of the Fluss that I'm testing, and I forgot to give her access. So that's we're always learning.
Well, I'm constantly changing how we turn lights on in the house, so it's my wife has the exact same pain points.
And my 2-year-old daughter, she just loves saying, "Hey Siri, turn that on." Yet, so.
Well, I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we've got a robot vacuum, and they've now discovered it's called Shorty, and Shorty is on in our house constantly because they're straight away asking Echo devices to stick on Shorty. So yeah, it's part and parcel of having a smart home. I suppose you've got to run with that.
Oh, it's great fun. It's great. Yeah, just tell my wife that.
Brilliant, Tom. Listen, I really appreciate your time. Anything before we finish up? Anything you kind of any finishing notes you want to just give us a bit of Fluss?
Lee, thank you very much for having me on here. It's been great to chat to you. I won't forget to send you those devices this time.
I'm going to hold you to that.
No, but if any of your listeners in the EU or the US are interested in trying out Fluss or putting us in touch with some partners, I really appreciate someone getting on with us and chatting to us. It would be fantastic.
Brilliant. Yeah, so anybody out there, either get in touch with myself and I can pass on to Tom and the team, or contact Fluss directly, and they'll be able to sort you out.
Great. No, thank you so much.
Right. No, Tom, thank you very much for your time. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed the episodes. The usual gentleman's agreement. If you did enjoy the episodes, give it a like, give us a subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're listening to it on your favourite podcast platform, hit that like and hit that subscribe. So everybody, thank you very much.